A quiet afternoon in Bethany. Mary sits alone at Jesus' feet. But in the other room, Martha has so much to do. She's missing out on fellowship sweet. And I know I could be Martha all day. Let my chance to be with you slip away. I want to be Mary for a while in all that I do. Close the door to everything that keeps my heart from you. Lord, I want to rest here and feel heaven smile. I want to be Mary for a while. I know I'd make Martha proud of me. With lots to do and places I must be. Yet I need this time to refresh my heart and mind. Your presence, Lord, is just what I need. 'Cause I know I could be Martha all day. Let my chance to be with you slip away. I want to be Mary for a while in all that I do. Close the door to everything that keeps my heart from you. Lord, I want to rest here and feel heaven smile. I want to be Mary for a while. Draw me nearer, precious Lord. Draw me nearer to your side. Lord, I want to rest here and feel heaven smile. I want to be Mary for a while.
Well, last week, I was listening to Pastor preach, and he actually brought up what I'm preaching on tonight. And it was funny because I was listening to him, and he was talking about David and the mighty men, and when the three went down to the well of Bethlehem to give him a drink of water, right? And I was thinking to myself, my goodness, could you imagine the leadership? I really started wondering about that, the mindset of his men, his mindset, his teachings, kind of, I mean, let's face it, right? Three guys don't just walk down to an enemy stronghold to get a glass of water, right? I mean, you got to be an extreme leader, right? So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta write this stuff down. I gotta start thinking about this, right? And then the very next day, Pastor Lugo texts me and says, hey, can you preach next Wednesday? I'm like, oh, am I so glad I paid attention in service, because I know for a fact this is what I'm supposed to study out, you know. And we all know leadership, right? We all have this picture in our mind of leaders that either we want to be or a style of leadership that we would like to follow, right? And it's easy to tell because you're here, right? And we identify with a certain leader, and he has a certain amount of skills, or I mean, maybe you're just one of the unlucky ones that were born into this and you're stuck, but either way, you're here, right? So, but I want to talk about leadership tonight, but I also want to talk about being a follower. And there's two sides of this message. So if you're not a leader and maybe you're just an up-and-comer, because we all should be striving to grow, right? But maybe in order to be a good leader, you got to follow first. But let's start. We'll talk with the leaders, right? Because you guys are up front. So let's look at just the definition, right? A process of, this is just a dictionary version of the leadership definition, of process of social influence in which a person can enlist the aid and support of others in accomplishment of a common task. The ability to influence or guide, right? So I thought that was a pretty good definition of leadership. But, I mean, it kind of leaves out a lot when you're talking about three guys being so influential that three guys will go against an entire enemy stronghold to get you a cup of water from the well of Bethlehem. So let's actually, we'll go there first, right? 1 Chronicles chapter 11. 1 Chronicles chapter 11. And while you're turning there, I was joking with Mr. Winstead up here. I says, boy, maybe we'll get lucky. And he goes, what do you mean? I says, well, maybe, a missionary will walk in and, before service and we'll be like, oh, hey, brother. Oh, hey, you ready to preach? I was joking. He goes, yeah, I'm funny. And then, Pastor Pete, you walked in, but you were too late, man. If you would have been 5 minutes earlier, you'd be up here. All right, First Chronicles 11, and let's start in verse 15. Now 3 of the 30 captains went down to the rock to David, into the cave of Adullam. Out of the host of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. The monitors are ringing pretty good. And David longed and said, oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem that is at the gate. And the 3 brake through the host of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate and took it and brought it to David. But David would not drink of it, but poured it out to the Lord and said, my God forbid it me, that I should do this thing. Shall I drink of the blood of these men that have put their lives in jeopardy? For with the jeopardy of their lives they brought it. Therefore would he not drink it. These things did these 3 mightiest men. And it goes into what these guys were and what they did. And there's Abishai, right? Abishai was, think about this guy. Abishai, he slew 300 enemy soldiers at one time, right? Now again, think of the leader you'd have to be in order to have a man like that follow you, right? Think of David's leadership style. Think of how, granted he was the man after God's own heart, right? So that's why I look at this more so than a lot of other leadership styles, because to me, if he's after God's own heart, then he probably has some things that most people don't have, right? We're supposed to, if you want something that you don't have, what are you supposed to do, right? You're supposed to find somebody who has it and then figure out what he did to get there. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, David has a leadership style that is amazing, and he is after God's own heart. So what is he doing? What is he like to have a man that will run in and slay 300 enemy soldiers at one time, right? And then there's Benaiah. He slew 2 lion-like men, and I was joking around with my brother. I'm like, I don't know what a lion-like man looks like. And to me, he had the best description. He said, Mr. Johnson, but bigger. Right? And I'm like, that's a pretty good description. I could see that as a lion-like man. Like, I would never mess with Mr. Johnson at his smaller stature, let alone if he was twice the size, right? So I'm like, okay, well, that's a pretty good description of a lion-like man. I think that's fair, right? What else did he do? He killed a lion. He killed a lion in a pit on a snowy day. Right? That's in the Bible too. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, a lion in a pit. So I'm going, okay, did he fall into the pit and he killed it? Or did he just get in the pit with it? Think about these guys. These were not normal people. Okay? Right? And then he says in the Bible, again, and he slew a giant that was 5 cubits tall. Right? He was 1 cubit, 1 arm span shorter than Goliath. right? And he killed this, and he was an Egyptian, right? And he says he slew him with his own spear. And it describes the spear as a weaver's beam, right? I don't know, have you guys ever seen the weaver's beams, the huge things they swing in the fields, right? That's not a normal-looking spear, right? And yet he took it away from the giant and slew him. So I'm like, man, what is David like? What is David like? Well, I was reading through, and there's another account of this, and it's in 2 Samuel. So go ahead and turn there. 2 Samuel 23. And this is David. It seems like he's passing off the scene at this point, and he starts kind of talking about what God says a leader should be. And I have to admit, when I read through this, I kind of chuckled to myself, right? So, and I think you'll see here in a second. 1 Samuel 23, and we'll just start right in verse number 3. And we're only going to read 2 verses, right? The God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me, he that ruleth over men, right? So he's a leader. This is what a leader should be. This is somebody who ruleth over men. He must be just, ruling in the fear of God. He shall be as the light of the morning when the sun riseth, even the morning without clouds, as a tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after the rain. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Right? I mean, literally, think of that. We think of a leader, right? Especially, I came from the construction world. I also came from the Army. My leaders, I'm just being honest, didn't give me the impression of tender grass springing out of the earth by the clear shining after the rain. Right? I mean, I'm laughing to myself because here I am picturing an Old Spice commercial with that guy who says, I'm on the horse. And I'm very handsome, right? And I'm laughing to myself as I get this picture, but I'm thinking, you know what? This is amazing, though. Really think about this. We're talking about, I just read you some of the qualifications of just the men that followed him, right? These were warriors. Think of the leadership style he had to have men so dedicated to him that they would risk everything for him in his cause, right? So think of that. And I know, when you read that and then you line it up to a leader, you're like, what? Right? I mean, I'm thinking the Army. Take the hill, run, right? Or work. That's all you got on today. You want to come back tomorrow? You better hurry up. And that's not a leader. That's a dictator, right? And I want to go through a few other things, right? He has to be just. Ruling of the fear of God, light of morning, tender as the grass springing out of the earth by the clear shining after rain, right? How many of us leaders in this room, how many of us are just? How many of us are above reproach? How many of us, when there's no one watching, you're doing the right thing? Think about that, right? We're talking about a man who's speaking of the leadership style he's after God's own heart. And he's saying what a leader should be. And he's first off says that we should be just. Light of the morning. When you're seen, do people feel refreshed? Like when the sun first hits you when you walk outside. That's how I liken that. When I was reading it, I'm like, you know what? Man, when I walk outside in the morning, usually the sun's just coming up, and I'm driving to work, and that sun comes up over the trees, and it comes through the windshield of my truck, and I just go, right? Man, is it nice to see the sun and not 4 feet of snow, right? I love it. It's wonderful. Okay, I was built for the desert. After I came home from my deployment when I was in the Army, I told my wife, I says, man, I loved it. The heat, that was me. And I came home on leave in February, and it was like negative 30 degrees when I got here. And I came out of a combat environment that was 130, so I froze. But, that's what that means to me. When you walk into a room, because every leader has a presence, right? Do the people in that room, do you suck the air out of it? And they go, ugh. Or do they go, oh, man, I'm glad he's here. I mean, it's something to think about. It's something to think about. Because there's a leadership style that causes people to follow. And then there's a leadership style that turns people away. And what are we? Right? Reflect on that. Tender as grass springing out of the earth. Are you approachable? Do you have discernment? Is someone uncomfortable if they have to sit and talk to you about an issue? And here's the thing. I know that I'm talking about leadership, right? Guys, there's many forms of leadership. There is not just Pastor Lou on this platform, or Pastor David B.A., right? Or Pastor John Bittner, or Mr. Winstead, right? There's not just them. There's when somebody comes to you with a problem as a friend, right? There's a chance to reflect on what a good leader should be. Are you approachable when that person comes? Do you have discernment, or do you just give your opinion? Do you think about what their issue is, and are you praying for them? Or are you just throwing out something that you think should happen without thinking it through? This is what David is saying. And I wonder, as I see what he wrote in 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel there, is if, man, was this what he was like? I mean, think of the wording that he used. This is a man who was so bloodied, God wouldn't let him build his temple, right? He had to wait for his son because of all the war that he's seen. But yet he speaks of being as tender as grass and all the other things. Man, what a leader. What a leader he must have been. You know, obviously I want to use the best example, right? And that's Christ. Let's look at his leadership style. And then we're not going to go through the verses. I looked up a bunch of them. But look how he led his disciples. Every one of them were different. Every one of them. If you read through, I mean, you can obviously see that, you know, Peter was a type A personality, right? And then, you know, you got a couple others that are all different. And you know what? Each one needs to be handled different. Every one of them does. God showed discernment. Christ showed discernment when he was working with his people. The other thing is, do you relate? Do you relate with those, with the people that you lead or that you serve? Right? You have to be able to relate. You have to be able to work with them. And you can't if you don't. And I remember I listened to a leadership guy, well-off millionaire, and he was saying that he says this story of he's obviously he's a leadership expert. He has massive companies. He's a multi-hundred millionaire. And he was talking about he met one of his guy's parents, his father's. And all he did was just sit there and go, "Oh, really? And then what else happened? Oh, my goodness, you don't say. What else? Oh, man. No kidding." For the entire 15 or 20-minute conversation, right? You know what that guy's father said to his son who works for this man? That guy's the smartest man I ever met in my life, right? Never offered one piece of advice, never said nothing, but he listened. See, there's more about being a leadership than just barking orders, right? And it's really hard because that's what's ingrained in Americans, right? I don't know about the rest of the world. I just know about us, right? And I'm from the Army, right? Came from the Army. I'm in construction. I'm used to barking, right? I deal with some really rough personalities, and then I'm studying this leadership thing out. Now I'm conflicted. You know, I'm like, if I go up to them and say soft as grass, they're gonna slaughter me, you know. But at the same time, you know what I decided to do? I decided to listen to my guys more. Right? Are you a good listener? Are you a good listener? Because they're not gonna care about your vision or how much you know, right? And how's the saying go? Until they know how much you care. You know, that's what I like about Pastor Lou. Pastor Lou, I can come and I can talk to him, and he sits there and he does what that leader expert said. Oh, really? What else? And I'm like, I'm not telling you my secrets, man. Get away. You know? I know your game. But you know what? He's a leader who cares. He's a leader who cares. All right, so I harped on the leaders enough. Now it's time for the follower, right? Here's a definition. One who adheres to opinions, ideas, or teachings of another. Let's go to Ephesians 5:1. I like this one. I really do like this verse. It says, in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, right? It just says, "Be ye therefore followers of God, as dear children." Right? And I started thinking of that. Okay, what do you mean as dear children? Right? I started thinking of my sons. They're younger, right? What are they? Well, they're blameless, right? They're sponges. They're loving. They're caring, right? They care a lot about their leader. They care a lot about their dad, right? See, it's a reciprocating relationship, right? We're taught now that to get everything out of everything we can, right? It's all about entitlements. I'm entitled. Why? Because I'm an American. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm just entitled, right? I should get everything for free. And if you give me, look at the politicians, the way they created this culture, right? You give me what I want, and I'll vote for you. Right? You give me you want my vote, what's in it for me? It's not what's your morality? Right? What's your picture of leadership? What have you done in the past? Do you have a decent family structure? Do you have a decent moral foundation? Or are you just another one of them snakes who's trying to buy a vote? I'll bring this money to your town. I'll cut your taxes. Yeah, but it says here that you're for that bill that's going through the Senate right now. That's for third trimester abortions. Oh yeah, but don't worry about that. I'm going to bring that train station to your town. Right? Is that being you as followers, right? The ones that are following, and everybody's a follower, right? In some aspect, you're responsible for more than we think, for more than we're taught. We really are. Hebrews 6:10 through 12. Oh, I was in the wrong chapter. I was wondering why that verse didn't make any sense. I'm like, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. All right. Hebrews 6, verse 10, and we're going to go through verse 12. "For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have showed toward his name, in that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister. And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to a full assurance of hope unto the end, that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promise." See, we're responsible as followers to do what's right. We're also responsible to put into practice that which we hear. We're not meant to just show up and absorb, right? We talk about the being a glass, right, as Christians. And then the Lord fills us. And what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to just keep filling me, Lord? Just fill me. Right? I'm emptied out, though. We think we're emptied out because we go to work into the world, and the world might beat us down. And yes, it does. But at the same time, is that the design? Are you supposed to be emptied because you go in the world and work a hard job, or maybe get made fun of as a Christian, or whatever your situation is? No. Right? It's supposed to be that as the Lord fills you, you put into practice that which you're learning outside, and you spill those blessings out onto others. We're taught as followers to get. Right? Let me have it. I want it. Give it to me. Let me hoard it in. This is me and mine. Right? We expect our leaders to give it all, don't we? Yeah. Sell your house, Pastor Lou. Right? Sell your car, suffer for the ministry. You have it. You want me to do what? Pastor Lou, I just don't feel led of the Lord, brother. It's kind of tough. Tough, you know how it is. It's really hard out there now, and I know you can barely make your bills. I know, but hey, I'm just a little too busy to go help you with this matter, whatever it may be. Or if he approaches you on a Sunday school class, because we have obviously a bunch of moving parts, and I don't know, Sunday school class, kids, Pastor, I got 4 of my own, and that's good for you. I mean, I know you have to at least pastor my family, which is probably hard enough, but let alone all the rest of us, and that's good for you. That's your calling, and brother, I pray for you. Right? But that's how it is. That's how it is. Why? Why is that like that? Why did we allow the cultures of the world to creep into our church? To creep into our culture? Right? The Bible says to be separate from the world, not to bring it inside the church. Right? I remember when I was younger, I wasn't doing right, and I'm sure some of you know the stories, but it is a miracle that I'm even up here tonight. But the fact is, I came to church. I never stopped coming to church, and it's because it's the only place where I could get rest. I remember coming to church, sitting in the back row, and going, oh, it just slows down, right? Because I knew where home was. And I knew what doing right was. And this was the only place where the world just kind of got out of my life, and life kind of slowed down, right? And it was peaceful. And isn't that what church is supposed to be? Right? Isn't that how it's supposed to be? That we're different from the world? We're not supposed to just show up because it's our duty as Christians. That's not right. It's not right. I remember, and I'm kind of glad, you'll see, I'm glad that Pastor Lou's not here tonight, because I'm going to obviously talk a little more about him. But I remember when Pastor Lou Sr., he called for a work day, and you know what? He didn't have to call 30 guys. We just showed up. It was weird. It was a different culture back then. It wasn't a welfare mentality. And I'm not saying out here, please don't, that everybody has it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying things were different back then. Because we were givers. People were givers. And I know there's a lot of people in here that give it all. And I'm not saying I'm not smashing anything. But I'm just saying maybe think about that. Am I doing more? Can I do more? Can I help out more? And it kills me because I preach to myself. I'm sitting here the whole time I'm writing this out. I'm like, man, it's horrible. I just had a chance to get right before any of you guys did, so. Right, but I look at it and I go, man, could I do more? Am I stuck at my job? My job, that my boss, they want me to do more and more and more and more. When's the limit? Right? When I do all his work and he gets to sit home all day? Right? I don't know. But there's times where I got to go, hey, enough's enough. Right? I got responsibilities at the church. Right? I got to do this. I got to do that. I actually left early today. First, I barely leave early. And I left early today because I wanted to get my message done and right. Right? You prayed up, make sure I'm right before I try and preach this thing. Think about that, right? Can you do more? Where are you in your walk? Because we have a pastor that left a very successful job. I work for a company called BC Flynn, and we're working on a big project downtown in the medical corridor, a huge new medical campus they're building. And I work with the contractors. They're obviously a different company, but I work for his old company, And I work with the guy, the project manager, that Pastor Lou would be today if he would have stayed there. And that man makes a lot of money. a lot of money. He's got the big F-250 lifted crew cab, right? Got his own parking spot, pulls the boat on Fridays. He's got everything. He's a very, very wealthy person. Well, he makes over 6 figures. I can tell you that. I can guarantee you, I sit on the finances of the church. Pastor does not make 6 figures. Just figure I'd throw it out there. Okay? Pastor gave up a lot. He gave up a lot. And yet, do we take that for granted? Do we take it and run like we're taught to out in the world? I know we're not taught that here. I'm talking about the world, right? Are we taught? Because that's what we're taught. Take what you can when you can get it and walk away. Is that what we do? As he stands up behind this pulpit and pours his heart out and pours his message right into us because he sits there and he thinks of every one of us and he prays for every one of us. And he talks to every one of us when he can, right? I know there's a lot of us, right? I mean, look at it on a Wednesday. There's a lot of people here. Imagine in Sundays. I mean, we're bringing in 200 bus kids on top of everybody else. He's stretched thin. Are you doing, is it a reciprocating relationship or is it just one-sided? Right? A lot of us are married, right? And they always say there's always one taker in the relationship, right? And it's usually the guy. In my case, it's my wife. I'm kidding. It was such a joke, honey. No, it's me. I'm being obviously facetious. Yes, we know. Yes, all of you know. All right? But I have to think. I actually have to go out of my way to go, okay, did I at least tell her I loved her once this week or this month? Right? She's been asking for a date, to go out on a date. We got 4 kids under the age of 7, right? I don't think we have to go to the date on a date if we just offer the kids up for adoption. Then it'd be like, when we were kids again. It'd be great. She wasn't for that, so now I got to spend money, take her out, right? But I have to actually think of going out and taking care of her and reciprocating the relationship, giving back. What are you doing to give back? What are you doing? And I can't sit here and give you a list, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right, of all these different things to do to give back. Why? Because we're all different. Look at the disciples, right? They were all different. They all had different strengths and weaknesses. There's no difference in this room today. Some of you may be teachers. Some of you may vacuum the carpets. Some of you may do construction. Some of you may be just helpers. Some of you may be bus workers. Some of you may be bus drivers. Some of you may be secretaries. Right? We all have different callings and strengths and weaknesses. We all do. Are you using yours? Are you using your strength and working on your weaknesses for Christ? We're supposed to follow our pastor as he follows Christ. I think it was Brother John, I think you were saying in about Paul, right? When he said, "Follow me as I follow Christ." Right? That takes guts. Because if you're, he's a man, right? But you know what? I know Pastor Lou has never said that, but realistically, he's the shepherd of the flock here. Correct? Right? So as he follows Christ, are we not supposed to follow him? Kind of makes sense. Right? And as we get to the point, we went through huge construction phases, obviously, here at the church, right? First with this building, and then we converted the old church to a parsonage, so, that's done, and there might be a couple other little small things here and there, but for the most part, we're done building, physically. And now, it's weird, but I can kind of see our vision changing to spiritual, right? Where he's talking more about soul winning. He's talking more about getting a vision, right? He's talking more about other avenues of approach. And here's the thing. Now it's like, oh, man, we're starting to go. I can feel it. Are you going to be one that gets behind it and supports it? Or are you going to be a non-supporter? One that tries to squash it? Going out. It's cold outside. It's too hot outside. I ain't doing that. He wants me to do what? Doesn't he know how old I am? Right? Or I got all these kids. I like using that one. I got all them kids. But he calls me out and he goes, yeah, but you're never home. Got me. Right? We have all of these excuses, but why is it that when God lays something on our heart, and we all know that feeling, right? Something happens as you work through your life that where God lays something on your heart. And I find like in my circumstance, I can't say it for everybody, but I always try to go, yeah, I'm busy. Oh, I got that one thing I got to do. And it's real easy for me. I have a to-do list that never ends if I want it to. But why do we justify it that way? When really all it is, man, I should go visit that brother. It'll take me an hour. Man, I should go see Coach at the hospital. I got to work, and then I got that thing. I can't remember what that thing was, but I know I had it, right? I was busy. I know I was. I should have wrote that thing down, right? Is that what we're doing? Why do we justify like those things? And here, guys, I don't know if you've noticed, but the list is longer for the followers than it is for the leaders. It really is. In this circumstance. Because I look at a leader like David, and he had a vision, and I cannot imagine the stress levels that he had. But he had those certain qualities. And then that caused men to follow him that would jump into pits with lions and would kill giants and fight for the foundation of Israel to be built upon and would run into a battle and slay 300 men. Here's the thing. Is it harder to have the vision, or is it harder to be one of those men doing the work? Right? In my opinion, they're equal. And here's the thing. This is why I say that. Verse 11 in Hebrews 6 says this, "And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence and full assurance of hope unto the end." God confirms that we should be working just as hard as those leaders who came before us. He uses the phrase in there, show the same diligence. But yet, we expect our leaders to kill themselves for us. Right? Is that showing the same diligence? Could you imagine the unstoppable force this church would be if we showed the same diligence in our spiritual work as Pastor Lou? Could you imagine? There wouldn't be an empty seat in this place. There wouldn't be. Think about that. Think of what he says. He expects the same diligence, the same work ethic where God has you. Yes, Pastor Lou's up here. Yes, Pastor Lou's the pastor here, right? But that doesn't release us as followers to do less. The Bible says we're supposed to do our responsibilities with the same diligence that he does his. But yet, a lot of times we justify it. We justify our laziness, right? Or our being a pacifist. Oh, don't worry, we'll be all right, right? Just let that go, put it on the back burner. It's church, it has its place, right? Instead of it being the where it's supposed to be, your life. My text, right? 1 Chronicles 11:15 through 20, right? Let's go. We're not going to go back there for sake of time. But let me ask you this, right? I was in the Army. I know a few of you are in armed service, right? Gabe, you ever have a good leader? Yeah, good. So did I. I had a good leader. I'd follow that guy to the end, right? For sure. Okay? Let me ask you this. What would you give for your leader? What would you go through for him? How many cold rivers would you swim? How many sleepless nights would you go through? How many walks through the burning desert would you walk? What would have David's men gone through for him? And I think that's pretty evident. One jumped in a pit with a lion. Right? one slew 300 men. 3 of them ran down and broke through a Philistine garrison just to get David a glass of water out of a well. Could you imagine that? 3 guys breaking through a garrison, 2 of them standing guard or hacking up, right, fighting, while the other one's drawing up that glass of water. Could you imagine that? What would you go through? Now, you can say to me, you know what, Jesse, that's great, man. You know, Gabe, you can relate to that, right? I'd walk through a burning desert for my sergeant, my platoon sergeant. I've had sleepless nights. I've been on 72-hour missions. I've been in multiple firefights. I've been blown up, I don't know, half a dozen times. Right? I've been through a lot with this guy. Been there, standing there talking, and he goes, look down. And I look down, and there's a wire going into the ground right beneath my feet. He goes, you might want to clip that wire because I think it's a bomb you're standing on. And I go, oh, you think if you run, the trigger guy's going to blow us up? He goes, yeah, just pretend you're tying your shoe. And I reach down, tie my shoe, and dig up 3 artillery rounds underneath where I was standing. Right? I've been through a lot with that guy. But you know what? Can that relate to all of us here today? I mean, let's be honest. The answer would be no. Right? I don't know. Pastor Lou might take us through a burning desert on a mission trip. He might. He's taking some of us to Guyana. So, I mean, there might be a couple things he might go through. Maybe a couple rivers and deal with some snakes. And probably some spiders. Right? But for the most part, is what I just talked about going to relate? No. So let's make it relate. How many hours in prayer would you spend for your pastor? How many hours helping in classes and the buses? How many conversations of love and encouragement would you engage in? How much respect and loyalty would you give your pastor who has given up everything for you? I want you to think about that and try to let it relate and sink in. And I know this isn't a, I guess it is a get right sort of a message and all that. And I know that we're not supposed to just follow a man. And I understand that. I think we all are in agreement with that. We're supposed to follow God. I got that. But at the same time, there are loyalties. Why? Because he's your shepherd. Right? And if I may liken us to sheep, which I hate using the example because sheep are dumb and I don't want to think I'm dumb. Right? I'd like to think I'm smart, at least somewhat. Don't ask my wife why, but I try to pretend at least. But here's the thing. You guys ever seen, you should look up videos online of shepherds and what they do. And I seen one where the shepherd walks away and he made some crazy call, right, with his mouth. And you know what? All them sheep came running. And he was a ways away. I thought that was super cool. So if the Bible likens us to sheep, right, and he's one of our shepherds, then maybe, just as those sheep have loyalty, we should have some loyalty. We should have some respect. And we should openly know, consciously admit to ourselves that a lot of us, man, we could do more. We really could. Behind this wall is a whole other side of this building, right, that is just as big. Just as big. Right? That's big. And I think it has all the high ceilings, which is super cool. I'm a fan of big ceilings. But think about that. There's a whole other side of that building. We could put another 100 chairs in here before we even need that side of the building. But I'll tell you right now, it's not going to happen unless we start to work just like Abishai, just like Benaiah, right? Just like David's mighty men. And you know what? There might be a few in here that will risk getting in the pit with the lion. It might slay some giants. And I'm sure going to shake the guy's hand who slays 300. That might be one of you guys. But you know what? There were 400 mighty men. 400. There was a lot of people that said, David, I'm going to follow you as you follow God's heart. He was a man after God's own heart. You know, and I'm thankful for the pastor we have. I'm thankful for the fact that he's not prideful. He's not lifted up in himself. I get to sit. I have the privilege of sitting in on some of the staff meetings. And I like our pastor. He finds counsel. He does the best job. He does the best job he can at following God's will. And it's such an encouragement. But it kills me, though, because I know personally I could do more. What can you do? How can you help? Can you do more? What can you do to help the vision of our church? And I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. My kids can give out tracts. Right? Guys, we can do a lot. Because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting. Look at our society, it's falling apart. And this is the best opportunity we have to maybe help put some families together, to bring a few more bus kids in, right? Because we have something that's different. Otherwise, testimonies, I don't remember who gave it, I think it was Mrs. B.A., of someone coming in after 20 years riding the bus. 20 years ago they rode the bus, and they came back, and they just gave that little brief thing of saying, hey, I'm moved on. I'm not living in the same state, but I'm trying to find a good church. And that person remembers 20 years ago. They must have been a young person. But because of that, because of the truth that we have, their life is affected forever. What are you going to do? Who are you going to affect? Find a way as our glass gets filled that you spill out. If you need some help figuring out, there's more than enough people on staff and pastor that would love to help you fit into where you could fit in and help. Pastor Lou Sr. had a vision for this church. And his time ended when that vision came, right? And he built this. We all built this, right? As we had that vision with him, and we built this. And you know what? Now it's vision number 2. Right? And it's time to step up. It's time to help. And I'm kind of glad that pastor's not here tonight. It makes it a little easier to preach something like that because he'd be all red-faced sitting in the front row. Right? We all know him. But here's the thing. Help. What can you do? What can you do? Are you making excuses to justify your schedule, your busyness? Or are you building your life around the priorities it should be built upon? Think about that. Well, let's pray. Lord, I want to thank you for this opportunity that you gave me to come before this congregation and talk to them, Lord, about an issue that's on my heart, Lord, of leadership and being a good follower. And I want to thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to be brought up in this church and to know the truth and to serve under Pastor Lou as he follows you. And we want to thank you for our leader, dear Lord. I pray that you just bless everyone, Lord, as they maybe think or meditate on these changes. And I pray that you bless the invitation to follow. In Jesus' name, amen.
Bowed and eyes closed. We'll sing page number 39. Page number 39. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love, at the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Take my voice and let me sing always only for my King, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled
treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for thee, ever only all for thee.
And with this, with the message, I do want to put a disclaimer at the end of it. You know, our pastor is still a man, right? And I know the danger of putting him on too high of a pedestal. And I've seen people, as years growing up in church, that put an unjust burden on Pastor Lou Sr. because he was a man, and he wasn't perfect. And when he messed up, they took it personal, and they left. Don't be one of those. Put it in perspective. He's a man. Guess what? He's going to screw up a little bit, and that's okay. That's all right. Just be true to the fact that you're following him as he follows Christ, but you also have your own relationship with Christ. Don't put it all on Pastor Lou as you follow him. He's there to provide the vision and help guide us through this thing. That's his job. So don't be surprised when things mess up, because we are human. And give him that grace, because I can guarantee it, he's giving it to you. I know he's gave me lots of it. All right? So love on him. Pray for him as he's getting ready to come home soon. Right? It's be a little bit of a trip for him, and I'm sure he's going to come back, exhausted. And I was joking around about him coming in back with the nice tan and the of course he's Italian, he has it all the time, but the scuba diving, which he didn't do, and all the exotic adventures he has of mixing concrete by hand and building that giant building. So, but pray for him. I'm sure he's working pretty hard on top of running a family conference. So, all right, let's close out in prayer. Lord, again, I just want to come to you one last time this evening, Lord, and thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to stand before these people. And I pray for, again, our pastor as he gets ready to come home, and that you help him influence those people over there as they're in their first generational cycle of church, Lord, that you just bless them and bestow mercy on them, Lord, and use our pastor. And we can't wait to have him back, Lord. Again, pray for traveling mercies for him and also for everyone leaving here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. You're dismissed. Just a reminder, there is Sounds of Praise practice for a couple minutes after church. Thanks.